Welcome everyone. In this video tutorial I'm going to show you in the Blender game engine how to add some basic audio over here on the left, and then how to do some landscape generation, sort of the quick method. So let's jump right in. For audio I'm going to be using two resources, opengameart.org and also this really great one called Incompetech. Both are really fantastic. Incompetech is a single music composer, I believe, and he does more music, no sound effects. And OpenGameArt has both sound effects and music, and other kinds of game art, of course, so assets that you can use for your games. So let's start there. I'm going to go here to Browse, and I'm going to go down to Sound Effects, and I'm going to type in Jump. It's already here, and just hit Search. And you can basically click and play on any of these, and then they'll go through and you can listen to them. You can then go ahead and click on the name, and that brings you to here. It gives you a little description of what you are about to download, and then you might download a zip file, so go ahead and download that. This is the one that I'm using for the tutorial, and I've already downloaded it to my computer. Okay, moving on to Incompetech. So I'm going to be doing a sound effects for jump. Let's go ahead and put that in there. And then I'll be doing some background music. So I'm going to go ahead and this is his older site. So I'm going to go to royalty-free music. He does have a new site that you can check out. You do have to register for it, I believe, but it is a big improvement over this one. I'm going to go to View Collections. And I do like this, even though it is older. I do like the genres that it's broken up into. For games, I really like this film scoring moods section, where you can go ahead and choose all different kinds of ones. So for this one, for this tutorial, I went to Action, and then you can go ahead and click on any of these, and you can, this is the one that I'm using, Outfoxing the Fox. Then you can press play, and you can listen to it, and then you can download it as an MP3. Okay, moving on. The last resource I want to show you is not audio, but this is a plug for a really great app that I use quite a bit, and my students use quite a bit, called Adapter. It's free for both Mac and Windows, and it will convert, as you can see right here, video, audio, images, and it's fantastic. It really is. I wish the company a lot of luck, and let's get to it. So the sound effects that I downloaded, it's not an MP3 file, it's a WAV file, and I want to convert it to an MP3 file. So I'm going to do that right now. So I'm going to go to my desktop and open up my sound effects folder. Alright, so here's the jump, and you can see it's a WAV file. And so now I'll open up Adapter, and it's as simple as dragging and dropping. And I'm going to come down here to the bottom middle, and I'm going to choose audio, and I'll just choose MP3. That's it. Click on Convert. It gives you a whole bunch of information, and that was it. It also compressed the audio, so that's it. Adapter is done. And it puts it right in the exact same folder, so that's cool. And there it is. Okay. I'm going to get into Blender now. So this is my sample game that I've made for my students. Again, this tutorial is not on how to make a game. It's really on audio and landscape generation. So if you don't already have a game, you could check out one of my other tutorials, and there's lots of others out there about game creation in the Blender game engine. Okay, so I'm going to add the jump effect to my character here. So I'm going to right mouse click and select my character. I'm going to go to Add Sensor, and I'm going to do a, actually, you know what? I already have the jump. It's right here. It's the keyboard spacebar right here. So that's the third one. And then over here on the right hand side is the actuator. This is the actual jump that's making the character go up in the air. So if I press play, there you go. You can see it. Okay, so now what I want to do is I want to add another actuator, and it's going to be a sound actuator. scroll down. I want to put the sound actuator up here with the jump actuator. You can't just drag and drop it up, unfortunately. You have to click on this little arrow to collapse it, and then you get these little up and down arrows here. So I'm just going to click the up arrow a couple times until it's right there below the jump. Okay, so now simply click on Open. I'm going to go to my desktop, go find the sounds, and make sure you find the MP3. Do that and that. Okay, so now I'm only one step away. I just need to go from the AND controller and drag another wire to the sound actuator. So now what's happening, and this is very cool, is that we have one keyboard spacebar sensor, and that's sending out the signal to the AND controller, and then the AND controller sends it out to two actuators, so it's basically doing two things with one action. So here it is, and you can see, and hopefully here, there it is, firing it off nicely. Okay, let's get ready for the next part, which is going to be the background music. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and add in some background music. For background music, my recommendation is to just left mouse click, press Shift A, and actually add in an empty. I'm going to go ahead and make this one an arrows empty, just so it's a different shape. And I'll scale it up so you guys can see it a little bit better. You don't have to scale it up though. Okay, so the reason why I'm adding it to an empty is because you have to add it to an object in your scene that's going to be there basically all the time consistently. So I could add it to the ground. I could probably add it to one of these walls that isn't going to be moving at all. I like to add in little bits of helper code and things like that to empty objects because they're invisible, and I don't know, it just makes sense to me. Okay, so now that my empty is there, I'm going to come down here and go to Add Sensor, and it's going to be an always sensor, so it starts playing right when the game starts, and it's just going to be a sound sensor. Hook it up, go load the track, and then that's pretty much it. One thing you will notice with this now is that because I have a longer music track, I have all these extra options here, and I'll go into those briefly next. So now if I go ahead and press play, and I don't know if you can hear that, but okay, so the background music is playing. That's great, that's wonderful. Okay, so now I'm going to undo all of that. I'm going to delete all of that because what I want to do, and I'm going to delete that empty, what I now want to show you is something called a near sensor, and I'm going to attach the song, that ominous song, to this dark looking door here, and I'm going to have it trigger the song when the player gets near the door. It's a very cool effect. I use it a lot, and it's great. Okay, so on the door, I'm going to go ahead and go to the sensor. It's going to be a near sensor. And then for the actuator, it's going to be a sound actuator. It's going to be the same sound. Okay, and I'm going to wire those up. Okay, so for this near sensor to work, if you look down here in the sensor area, it's looking for a property. It has to find a property that it can detect and trigger. So I'm going to click on my character, and when I'm on my character, put your mouse pointer down here in the logic editor and press the letter N. And when you do that, that opens up the property window. And I already have a basic scorekeeper property set up, but I'm going to add a new game property. And this new game property is just going to be called player. And that basically is going to tag or label my object here as the player. You could really leave it as anything you want. You can leave it as float if you want. That's the default. I'm going to leave mine as integer. Okay, that's it. So I'll press N to hide that, go back to the door, and type in the property that it's looking for. Now you have to spell it here correctly, exactly as it shows, just like this. So lowercase, lowercase, uppercase, uppercase. Okay, so now you have the distance and you have the reset distance. And the distance basically means this is one Blender unit, which is one of these grid spaces here. That will be its trigger distance. So one grid space away from this door, you'll then hear the sound. And then the reset distance is it'll then take 2 spaces before it actually resets and stops. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to increase that because we want to be able to hear this. I'm going to try just 10. Okay, and the reset distance should always be generally greater than the regular distance, so I'm going to make that 14, we'll say. Okay, so now if I press play, you don't hear it at all. And so what gives? I'm right up against the door and I still don't hear it. Well, I had to do a little digging around on the internet, and it's surprising, but the solution is really simple, but it's kind of not obvious. So select your character, go over here to the physics button here, and you have to make sure that your object is clicked on as actor, this little checkbox here. And if you read the tooltip, it says object is detected by the near and radar sensor. Now we have our character set up with the character physics, so we can do proper jumping and all that kind of stuff. And I don't know why actor didn't come on by default, but it didn't. So now let's test that out. And hopefully you can hear that. And if I go away, and you can see it just cuts off like that. So it is working. So let's talk just real briefly before we wrap this up, because this is getting to be a little long. Let's look at the sound actuator. So there's a really cool feature here. So you have volume and pitch. You have the play mode, where you can actually have it do different kinds of looping. I think play stop is just fine. That's the default. The 3D sound is very cool. If you're an audio person, you probably know much better these settings than I do. You can certainly Google them and look them up. I'm going to just leave them at the default, but you can mouse over them, and you can maybe try things out, and all that kind of stuff. So 3D sound is very cool. Basically, it gets louder as you get closer to it, and it gets quieter as you go away, just like a sound does in the real world. So it actually knows about the location in 3D, which is very cool. So with that little check mark going on, and that's all I did. Let's see how that affects it. Okay, well I have to say that was not very exciting. So I'm gonna pause my video and figure out what I did. So all right, we just screencasted a mistake. We'll see. Okay, so I'm back. So I did some researching and I figured out why it's not doing the 3D sound. It's pretty interesting, and frustrating at the same time. So basically what I discovered was that if you're going to do 3D sound, if that's what really matters to you, it can't be a stereo track. It has to be a mono track. And I am not an expert on audio at all. I just kind of learn as I go along and learn from others. But basically, I had to go find a wave file because, and it had to be a mono wave file. So I ended up going back to opengameart.org and I found a track that was already a mono file, so that was a little trial and error, so I'll demo that for you now. I've increased the volume so hopefully you can hear it. You can see my distance says 14, so it starts right about here, and you should hear it. Now, if you want to be able to convert any track you find or have into a mono track, I would actually recommend using a program called Audacity, which a lot of people know. This tutorial isn't going to go into using that, but that's what would do it. And that would convert a stereo track into a mono track to allow you to do that. So if I press play and move forward, and so it starts playing right about now, and then as I get closer, it is tough to hear, but it is actually getting louder. And as I move away, and eventually it'll go off. Um, so yeah, so it does work. It's not the best, so I probably have to fiddle around with some of these settings here a little bit more. Um, and every song is going to give you a little bit of a different experience and challenge, but there you are. Okay, so that's it for this tutorial. In the next tutorial, I'm going to do some basic landscape generation, so I will see you in that one.